So what else would you include in your field kit? So we've already talked banana clips. We've talked the depth, height, adjustable test leads as well. What else would be valid, or what would you want to bring in the field with you to make sure you have everything you need,
I
multimeter wise?
typically always run with 1 meter, but I usually keep like 2 or 3 in my truck. Because one breaks, you have a backup. Test leads, you only need really one set of test leads, because you're only gonna, if one breaks, you're using the other one's test leads. You really just need a backup meter at that point. Me personally, when it comes to, I like to keep one open jaw like this, and then 1 meter like this. And so this FLIR one that I have right here, this one, yeah, it does. I had to read the fine print on the front of it right here, right? But 10 amp input. That's, look, I mean, I'm telling you that, how often do you need that thing? Seldom. But when you need it, you got it, right? So I can measure up to 10 amps on these inputs. You can measure amps on these open jaw, no problem. All these wires fit in the jaw. There's no issue with that. But the only problem that I have is not as accurate. It's passing straight through a meter.
Right. Makes sense.
So I typically just carry like these with me, or it used to be like this and this or whatnot.
Right.
Hell, back in the day, it was like 3 of these.
No, and that's more my speed. Like I said, I haven't done much in the way of testing in probably close to 8 to 10 years here. So FLIR wasn't really a option, and everything we used in the military was definitely the old school flukes that that you could just beat the ever living crud out of, and they would still rock and roll. So
oh yeah, I mean this thing is beat up right here. It's got all kinds of grime on it. It works like a champ.
Now, you mentioned the IR camera on the FLIR one, and so it'll get you by if you need it. And how often do you use the IR functionality? Or do you usually carry your own IR camera?
I have some videos on LinkedIn. You know me. I'm gonna turn it on real quick. I'm gonna put it on clamp on mode. And that's one thing I was gonna say was you have solid clamps like this, and you can get a lot of meters like this. You can also get attachments like on this FLIR, which is why I like it.
Gotcha.
In my kit that I keep for my FLIR, I have an 18-inch flex clamp.
Yeah, I remember
so
seeing.
This thing just plugs back into itself, but this thing goes from 30. It has scales on it: 30, 300, or 3,000 amps.
Oh, wow.
And it even has. Let me turn this thing on. Turns on. Flashlight on it.
Nice.
So when you reach inside the panel, struggling, with no daylight, you can still sit there and get this thing working. And you plug it into the meter and it works great. And why is this important? Because when you go out and you do an IR survey, you're supposed to be like, well, B phase is running hotter, and you're like, well, what's the current on it? If B phase has got twice as much current, of course it's running hotter.
It's definitely gonna run hotter.
This guy right here, you can put it on B phase, and then while you're in IR mode, I have it in current mode. I don't know how well you can see this, but in the top up here, you can also see that it shows the current. So now I can see the IR photo while I strap over it right now, so you can't really see it, right?
I see you now.
You can see the IR photo while you also see the current that you're doing, and then I can snap that picture, send it to my phone, and load it in the report. That's what I like.
Now that's some high tech stuff there. I like that.
Yeah, it is.
Now with that one that you had, that's kind of like the amp clamp, the longer one that you use for IR thermography. Didn't you do a video where you can do multiple wraps on that thing and it changes the outputs, or is that a different video?
Yeah. So what I was doing, I think, was that battery, the same battery one. I was trying to measure the ripple current, and the problem I was having is that it was so low that I wasn't able to get an accurate reading. And I was on the lowest setting, which is 30 amps, which is really it's a very low setting, right? So what I did was I wrapped it around, and so this is one wrap, right?
Right.
So that's 30 amps, right? So now if I go and I wrap it again, now I'm doubling everything because I have 2 wraps. So if I pass 15 amps through here, this is going to show 30 amps. Yep. If I wrap it 3 times, if I pass 10 amps through this thing,
it'll show 30.
It's going to show 30 amps. Yeah. And so what I was trying to do was I was trying to get more bang for my buck by tripling up my meter.
Now, do you find that the readings were fairly accurate using the wrap method? Did you have anything else to compare it to make sure it was? I know it's all comes down to the theory and the formulas of it, and it all makes sense. But how accurate is it for the end user?
Theory-wise, backs up my accuracy results. And theory-wise, the problem is that the current going through the wire was so low, that the magnetic field around it was low. And that's all this thing's looking for. It's looking for a magnetic
Right.
field. And so if I was able to take that same magnetic field and make it apply twice as much, it's, I'm able to see twice as much, and therefore my resolution is twice as good.
Gotcha. I was just kind of curious, and I know you kind of, like I said, you touched on it with that last video that you did on it. I thought it was pretty fascinating stuff to kind of show it. And the fact that we have the tech now, because like I said, back when I was doing technician stuff, we didn't have all this cool high-tech stuff. So I really like it in the way it, the way it functions and everything else. So
Yeah.
definitely some cool stuff.